Hello, I'm Judith Paquette, and we're doing Appendix G, Time Value of Money. And this will be the application of when we look at how we calculate the selling price of a bond. So in Chapter 10, we studied bonds. We learned how to issue them, we learned how to retire them, and we learned how to amortize the discount or the premium. But now, for right now, we're going to learn how to calculate the selling price. So in order to do this, you have to do two present value calculations, and then you add them together. You have to calculate the present value of the bond payable that will be due in the future, single amount, and you have to calculate the present value of all your interest payments. So we need to know the interest that we pay, and that's based on the contract rate. And that's applied to the face value of the bond. We know the face value of the bond, and then we also need to know the market interest rate. So let's quick review. Let's say you have 100 bonds. So what is the face value of a single bond? So it's $1,000. So if the bondholder has one bond from a company, when that bond comes due, the company has to pay the bondholder $1,000. So if we have 100 bonds, that means the company has issued $100,000 face value of bonds. And that's the one we've been working with. That's the exercise we did in Chapter 10 in your course pack. So in that exercise, we had the bond table and we said, the bond interest rate is 8%. The face value of the bonds are $100,000. The bond interest payments every year are going to be 8% times face value, or $8,000. And the bond issuance we've been working with is for 4 years. So if you are a bond holder and you bought a bond from a company, the company has a liability. They have to buy that bond back at the end of its life in 4 years. So the face value of the bond, if the market is also 8%, the issue price of the bond is going to be $100,000. Okay. Now, if the market is 6%, the market is paying less, but the company is paying 8%. The company's bond is more attractive. So we know from class that that means that bond is more attractive and that it will be sold at premium. All right. So we need to calculate the present value of the bond payable, the present value of all the interest payments, and we're going to use market rate, and we get those two calculations and we're going to add them together. So let's do it. So I want you to visualize a timeline with the 4 years in it, and that $100,000 at the end of year 4 is going to be paid back to the bondholder. Now, they're paying 8% for 4 years, right? But we are going to use, so we're going to calculate that using 8% for 4 years. Okay, so we're going to show you that when the market is 8% and the bond is 8%, that the selling price of the bond will also be $100,000. So we say that's a single amount and it's present value. So we're going to go to table 3. We're going to look at the intersection of 8% and 4 years. And we're going to get that number, and it's going to be 73503. You can see it right there. Then we're going to do the same thing, get a different timeline for the interest payments. And you can see them there. Every year we pay 8% of 100,000. And for this calculation, the only time we use the contract rate is when we calculate the actual interest payments. Now, when we go to the schedule, the present value tables, we're going to use the market rate. But in this example, the market rate and the contract rate are the same. So again, we go out to 8%, 4 years, and we get that factor, 3.31213, and we multiply it by 8,000. So here we have the two timelines. Here we have the calculation of the single amount. So that 100,000 being paid in 4 years, the present value of it is 73,503. The present value of the interest payments, we're using table 4, and a different factor, is 26,497. You add them together and you get exactly 100,000. That's when the market and the contract rate are the same. Now, what happens when there's a discount? Okay, present value of the bond at discount. So we know when a bond is sold at discount, we get less than face value. So we still have our two timelines, 100,000 and the 8,000 for 4 years, but now we're using a different market rate, 10%. So you're going to go to table 3, single amount for the 100,000, table 4, annuity for the 8,000. And you can check those factors on your own tables. So the factor is 0.68301, and that total is a little off there, 68,301 for the 100,000 present value, and for the payments, the present value is 25,359. So this bond will be sold for 93,660. And we would say that in how we say bond issue price, we'd say that $100,000 worth of bonds was sold at 93.66. We leave off the percent, don't ask me why. Okay. Now let's do the same for a premium. As we said earlier, if the contract rate is 8, but the market's only paying 6, we're going to sell that bond higher than face value. So we have those two timelines, one for the principal, 100,000, one for the payments. We're going to go to the table and use the market rate of 6%. And we're going to get 79,209 for the 100,000. We're going to look at the factor 6% on table 4, and we're going to get 27,721. And now we have our premium selling price, 106,930. So our issue price is 106.93%. So more than face value. All right, that concludes how we calculate the selling price of bonds.